His experience, guy played 5-6 years of college football as a starting quarterback.
He's very fast, he's an excellent runner and scrambler.
If they can protect him, he's got a chance to be really good right away.
Jayden has a good opportunity to be an outstanding player.
For what he can add to the run game right away because of his talent with his legs.
He's capable of doing that.
Jayden Daniels enters the NFL as one of the most intriguing quarterbacks in football. With some of the most electrifying college tape ever put out there, one can only imagine how his skill set will help him break the NFL. His elite ability as both a runner and passer means the sky's the limit for him, assuming he can get his feet on the ground. Let's dig into just how good Jayden Daniels can be in the NFL. Before we talk about his outlook as a pro, let's take a look at Daniels' college career and his journey to becoming the number 2 overall pick. Daniels started his college career as a true freshman for the Arizona State Sun Devils, coming in as a highly touted 4-star recruit out of high school and one of the best dual threat prospects in the nation. He posted solid numbers in his 3 seasons at Arizona State, leading the Devils to an 18-12 record throughout his tenure, which included the 2020 season that was shortened to just 4 games. Ultimately, with much of the Arizona State coaching staff leaving following his junior year due to controversies with recruiting over the COVID year, Daniels elected to move on from the team as well. Of course, Daniels found his new home with the LSU Tigers, and under the bright lights of SEC stadiums, he upped his game significantly. In his senior season, Daniels not only matched his rookie season's passing numbers with 2,900 yards through the air, but also took his rushing ability to new heights with over 800 yards and 11 touchdowns on the ground. Alongside his individual success came team success, with the Tigers posting a 10-4 record and routing the Boilermakers 63-7 in the Citrus Bowl. Daniels had cemented himself as one of the best quarterbacks in college football, and with a 5th year of eligibility because of COVID, he elected to return to LSU for the 2023 season. While Daniels came into his own in 2022, he really took it to a whole different gear in 2023. With 2 future first-round picks catching his passes in Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., Daniels lit the league on fire, throwing for 3,812 yards and 40 touchdowns, plus an additional 1,134 yards and 10 touchdowns on the ground. With Jayden at the helm, the offense flourished, averaging a nation-leading 43 points per game throughout the course of the season, and the Tigers posted a 9-4 record. Daniels won the Heisman Trophy in a landslide, with 503 first-place votes, and although the Tigers didn't find playoff success, he brought them back to prominence for the first time since Joe Burrow's historic 2019 season. Along the way, he set many notable records, including tying Burrow's record for 8 total touchdowns in a single game, and becoming the first player in college football history to pass for over 12,000 yards while also rushing for over 3,000. With all of that being said, it's clear why Daniels was viewed as such a hot commodity during draft season. Daniels possesses the ability to single-handedly break open games, and while some aspects of his game need coaching, he already has so many skills in his bag that are truly uncoachable.
Good to watch. Yeah, freaky athletic. Like, when I watch his tape, it's just like, hold your breath. Like, he's putting balls on the money, right? He is seeing coverage. You can tell when they're attacking too deep. You can tell when they're attacking single high. But then when he brings the ball down and goes, like, there's some juice there. Like, yeah. He'll run by you. He'll make you miss. Like, it's you kind of see everything on it. It's hard to almost compare him to anybody else.
Most years, Jayden would have had a shot at the number 1 overall pick, but with Caleb Williams essentially penned into that spot since August, the conversation shifted to Daniels or Drake May to the Commanders' 2nd overall. At the start of draft season, many analysts had May as the favorite to be taken 2nd. But as the offseason went on, the public opinion started to shift towards Daniels. While still being one of the top quarterbacks in college football, May regressed statistically in his junior year, and Daniels only continued to improve in his final season as a college player. May was initially liked because of his ability to function as a pure pocket passer, something that Daniels was never really forced to do in college. Ultimately, the draft analysts and eventually the Washington Commanders became too enamored with his ability as a runner to pass him by, so he was selected at number 2 overall. The Commanders are a very interesting landing spot for Daniels, who immediately can do a lot to revamp the entire style of this offense. Washington has failed to find their franchise quarterback for a long time, with RG3 not panning out, parting ways with Kirk Cousins, and essentially rotating through several journeyman quarterbacks and young prospects for the last 5 years to no avail. Daniels instantly solves that problem, and he inherits a team that's actually not as bad as it seems. Terry McLaurin is one of the most underrated wideouts in the NFL, and as a true X, he will be someone that Jayden Daniels can depend upon as he continues to develop. Zach Ertz is obviously not in his prime anymore, but could still be a nice safety blanket for Jayden Daniels as he tries to adjust to a much faster-paced league. And Ben Sinnott behind him has the chance to develop into a big-time playmaker as well. Jahan Dotson and De'Ami Brown are also intriguing young pass catchers for Daniels to work with, both possessing great speed, similar to the receiving core he thrived with at LSU. On top of all this, Washington brought in Austin Eckler in the offseason, who, despite having a down year in 2023, will be a reliable check-down option for Daniels out of the backfield. Brian Robinson will probably be taking most of the workload on the ground, and although he hasn't been a premier running back yet in his career, he's still a young player with a lot of potential to grow. That statement seems to ring true for much of the Commanders roster, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Teams don't exactly just luck into the number 2 overall pick. Generally, if they're picking in that spot, they aren't a very good roster. Not all of it, but a lot of that has been due to the poor quarterbacking play. And out of all of the quarterbacks in this draft class, Jayden Daniels should be able to make this team competitive the fastest. One of the biggest concerns for this team is the offensive line, and Jayden Daniels' natural mobility can help to alleviate some of those issues for the near future. Of course, it will take time for Jayden to adjust to life in the NFL. Playing in a pro-style offense with lengthy play calls, a complicated playbook, and being forced to read defenses and go through progressions at lightning speed is always difficult for rookies, but his legs will help him to become comfortable as a quarterback while also not being a liability to the team. For example, look at a player like Lamar Jackson. While Lamar didn't start his entire rookie season, in the 7 games he did start, he led the Ravens to a 6-1 record. In those 7 games, Lamar was extremely reliant on his legs, but it allowed him to become more comfortable throwing the ball and ultimately culminated in his sophomore MVP campaign. That's not to say Jayden Daniels will be Lamar Jackson, literally the greatest dual threat quarterback of all time. He most likely won't, but it is evident that Daniels is extremely talented in his own right, and there's a proven history of rushing ability translating very well over to NFL offenses in the past decade, and even allowing young quarterbacks to ascend to that upper echelon earlier in their careers. Another factor that could play to Jayden Daniels' benefit in the situation is the Commanders bringing in Cliff Kingsbury. Kingsbury is obviously a controversial figure in the NFL, and his tenure as the Cardinals head coach was rocky at best, but he does have a proven ability to develop young quarterbacks, especially dual threat QBs. Kingsbury has coached Johnny Manziel during his tenure with the Aggies, Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech, Kyler Murray with the Cardinals, and Caleb Williams last year at USC, on top of being a former NFL quarterback himself. Kingsbury's experience with play calling at both the collegiate and professional level will help Jayden Daniels have a smoother transition into the full offense, and the West Coast offensive scheme that Kingsbury employs will play directly into Daniels' strengths as a runner. So all of this begs the question, what is the realistic outlook for the Washington Commanders in 2024? It's hard to say exactly how the Commanders will perform, since most of that will depend on how well Daniels acclimates to the NFL, but it's not impossible for Washington to try and lock down a wildcard playoff spot. Looking at their schedule for the 2024 season, they get 4 games against the NFC South, including their season opener against the Bucs. Their home opener comes in week 2 against the New York Giants, which is another very winnable game against a team that may have a worse roster than Washington. All of a sudden, we could be looking at a 2-0 Commanders team that no one saw coming. This team feels like it could have a ceiling of around 9-8, potentially even getting a wildcard spot and making some noise in the playoffs, which would be an amazing start to Daniels' tenure as a Commander. Given that they are in the NFC East, which means they will be playing the Eagles and Cowboys twice and probably won't ever be in the running for the division title, I think a reasonable estimate for this season is 7-10. Of course, the NFL is a results-based league, and the goal of every season is to win now, but if Jayden Daniels can put some good film on tape, get more comfortable in the offense, and maybe even log a couple of upsets against better opponents, I think we're still looking at a highly successful season overall and a future with limitless possibilities. What the Commanders don't want to happen is a season like Bryce Young had last year, picking in the top 3 once again after not really making progress as an offense and winning fewer games than you have fingers on one hand. What gives me hope for a successful season in Washington this year is their defense. One of the things that doesn't get talked about enough about Jayden Daniels' career at LSU is how horrible his defense was. 9-4 is a good record for one of the best college football teams in the country, but when you're averaging 43 points per game on offense and your quarterback has the statistical season that Jayden Daniels did, that team should be in the playoffs with even an average defense. Dan Quinn as the head coach should be able to bring together a solid defensive unit, similar to what he had as the defensive coordinator in Dallas over the past few seasons. The talent on defense far outweighs their offensive talent, with the likes of Darren Payne and Jonathan Allen up front, Frank Louvu and Bobby Wagner freelancing over the middle, and Jeremy Chin on the back end. The secondary still needs help, and hopefully Emmanuel Forbes can continue to develop after a pretty rough rookie campaign, but the defense should not be a liability like it has been for Daniels in the years past. Fellow rookies Jerzon Newton at defensive tackle and Mike Sanderstill at corner have the opportunity to make big-time impacts if they can get starting roles. Overall, the Washington Commanders are simply a young roster with not a lot of expectations, but as we've often seen with talented young quarterbacks, Jayden Daniels can be the key to completely unlocking the potential of this team. If Daniels is who we think he is, the future is bright in DC. What do you think his ceiling is in 2024? Let us know in the comments.